to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and Taya Master Anne-Marie Young. This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Here in the northeastern part of the United States, and actually throughout a large portion of the country, we're experiencing a rather major heat wave and affecting a lot of things, travel and summer experiences and so forth. Where Alycia is, it's always a heat wave, so it's not really all that unusual for her.
Yeah, I'm glad everybody else is finally getting to experience.
Right. It's only fair, right? But one of the challenges, of course, is that when you're dealing with the hot weather, one of the last things you really want to do is work out. Correct. Because it's hot. I mean, that's the whole point. Anne-Marie, you're in the UK, you know the exact same feeling, right? I mean, you just don't want to do that. I know you work with a trainer, but you still don't want to do it.
Well, we're in a little mini heat wave, which is probably just a nice day to you guys, but to us it's sweltering. But there's three of us who work out in the morning, and all of us this morning were just like, we were struggling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, that's the way it goes, no doubt about it. So hopefully we're going to get a few tips on how to get through days like this one. But Alycia Carrillo is she's a fitness guru, really a fitness expert and instructor, and she's been through a number of personal situations that led her to this. I want to start off with that. So Alycia, first of all, welcome to the program. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here.
Glad to have you. And tell us the story. Tell us how did you end up doing this fitness thing?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. So, I was active my whole life. I grew up being athletic. My parents were athletic. My mom was a track coach. So I joke around that I grew up on the track. I played in the long jump pit, and her athletes were my babysitters. And so that was really all I knew. It wasn't a matter of if we were going to do sport. It was what we were going to do.
Okay. Yeah. A, B, or C. No, none of the above.
Yeah. And it didn't feel like a burden or pressure or anything. It just, I thought that was just what everybody did. And I loved it. I loved the team sports. I loved the individual. So I did a lot of track and soccer. I was a track athlete myself. All through high school. And then I walked on to the track team in college at University of Southern California to specialize in long jump. Unfortunately, during that time, I had a pretty bad back injury. Nothing specific, but if you've ever dealt with back pain, you know that it can be very debilitating and very difficult to pinpoint what's going on. That was really discouraging for me. That was probably I'd say my first heartbreak was realizing I had to kind of let go of that dream without maybe realizing my potential. And so I kind of puttered around for a few years after that. Just, I graduated and I thought, I guess I'll go work in a restaurant. So I became a waitress. Saved up money, and I thought, I'm going to go travel to Europe for a few months. That sounds fun.
Okay.
I did that, came back, and I thought, I'm going to move to New York, and I'm going to work in marketing. And I got hired as a personal assistant for an entrepreneur, which was a totally wild experience. But after a couple years, I realized, okay, we gotta get a little serious here. It's been fun playing around, but what are we really gonna do? So, I had started lifting weights during that time period pretty consistently, and my back pain had actually pretty much gone away by that point. And so I was kind of inspired to go into that industry in some capacity. And I thought at first that I wanted to come at it more from the physical therapist or physio side. And so I decided to get my master's, and I did that in Sweden because I still wasn't done playing, quite yet. So I thought, how can I kind of goof off a little bit more, but also go to school? So I pursued my master's in sports medicine, and about halfway through, I realized, I actually think I'm more interested in the performance side, almost like the injury prevention rather than the injury treatment.
Okay.
So I graduated. I went into strength and conditioning. I got my first internship at San Jose State. That led me to Clemson University and then Kentucky. So I worked as a collegiate strength and conditioning coach for a number of years. And, a lot of things kind of happened along that road, but eventually it led me to where I am now, which is working as a fully remote online strength and conditioning specialist, specifically with women over 30 who are looking to reconnect with that athlete identity. So
I'm impressed too by anybody who can do something like this online. I mean, normally you do that in the same room and you're reaching over saying, okay, do this, move your body like that. You can't do that through a camera. I mean, how do you make that work?
Yeah, I mean, and actually pretty much all of my programs are delivered via an app. So there are video instructions, but it's not exactly like a guided experience where we're like working out together. I do have some like one-on-one FaceTime sessions I do, but as I've grown in the industry and grown as a person and a coach, I've realized that where most people struggle is not with their form or, if they're doing things correctly. And even if they are, that's not really what matters. What most people struggle with is, showing up in the first place and sticking to it. And you can give that a lot more online when I'm in their pocket, 24/7. They have messaging access to me. Like we have weekly check-ins, we have FaceTime calls, then a trainer where you're seeing them at the gym, maybe 3 times a week, but you don't really have contact or a relationship outside of that.
So you're basically doing the modern version of what Jane Fonda did 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And she was very successful. I mean, she basically pioneered the whole thing. So
I would love to be the next Jane Fonda. So
why not? Yeah. So very good. Yeah. And to have turned it into an app. And does the app have a name?
So it's a third-party app that I basically just use. It's called Everfit is the one that I use. There's a number on the market. I've tried all of them at this point, and
all of them.
This is their free promo. I think it's the best on the market at the moment. Yeah.
All right, very good. And then you also have your own course that you've set up. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so my signature program at the moment, which I just actually launched officially today, is called the Fetch Method. Thank you.
Fetch Method. Okay.
Yes, and that is named after.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I named that after my late dog, who passed away in September from an accident. She was a really important and central part of my life and taught me a lot about love and resilience. And she only had 3 legs, but she like didn't care. She just like she wanted to be in the middle of like all the action, all the excitement, all the time. So it felt like a fun way to honor her. But the program is essentially, it's 16 weeks. I like to say it's the last program you ever need to start. So it includes a lot of mindset work along with a really good strength and conditioning program that is customized to you, your likes, your dislikes, your gym, your equipment, your injury history, all of that. And I didn't mention, but when I was at Kentucky, I also got a second master's degree in sport and exercise psychology.
Oh.
And so I like to incorporate that a lot into this program to kind of show people what is preventing them from showing up consistently and how they can make exercise fit into their life instead of trying to fit their life around exercise, which I think so many people think they have to do. So.
Well, I think you've touched on the nub of the issue, the mindset.
Yeah.
Or perhaps put another way, why it is I really don't want to have to do this thing that I have to do.
This thing that will make me feel good and I know is good for me and I'm not going to regret doing it, but yet I still can't make myself do it. Like, why is that?
Yeah. So, I mean, Emery, maybe I should turn it over to you because you're already doing this. I mean, what's your first question?
It's I think you start these things off and you've got all that motivation, and after a while it begins to, okay, this is now getting a bit hard, or the excitement's wearing off. And how do you keep people motivated to just be that consistency that you promote?
Yeah, so I mean, a number of ways, but first of all, I like to make it clear to people that motivation is really unreliable. So it's not It's the same thing with flossing your teeth every night. Like you don't do it because you're super motivated for, your next dentist appointment. You do it a little bit for the gum health and the teeth health, but mostly because if you do it, it's because you've developed a habit. So it's more, how can we develop that exercise habit? And what you just described is essentially the honeymoon phase, right? You start something new and you're like, this is awesome. I feel great. This is wonderful. I can't wait for my next session. And then usually like at some point around 4 weeks in, and I think there's like actually a date in the calendar for New Year's resolutions when like people.
Oh yeah, the Friday, right?
Yeah, it's like sometime in February when everybody like quits their resolution. Yeah. So it's like exactly that same concept. And so I prepare my clients for it ahead of time, like around week 3 of the program. I'm like, hey, I know you're probably feeling really good and excited, but like, just so you know, this might wear off. So how can we kind of counter that? Like maybe let's add in a little 7-day challenge. Let's like switch something up. Let's keep it fresh and we can brainstorm together. And they might choose, okay, yeah, I want to like track my sleep and focus on that. So it's really in the beginning, it's like keeping the shiny object shiny until, it becomes enough of a habit that we don't have to rely on that anymore.
Yeah.
And it is powerful when a habit gets going, because you get to the point with a habit where if you find yourself either close to or actually not doing it, you really miss it. Your body says something's wrong here. I can just feel, I miss that thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that is a kind of motivation. I mean, when you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's a motivation, but it's not the motivation that you originally start with, where it's maybe you're motivated by aesthetics or body composition, or even health, those things that are kind of more long-term. And that's actually like an interesting thing I see often is when people they start because they want to lose weight or lose fat. They want to maybe improve their health markers. And those things are not instantly gratifying. Like we've all done a workout and lifted up our shirt expecting to see a 6-pack, and it's probably not been there. I know that's been the case for me. And same thing with the health markers. Like you're not going to do a workout and immediately know if your cholesterol improved, or your blood pressure or anything like that. And so what you're talking about when it becomes a habit, that motivation is like the absence of the workout, and that is more instant. It's I didn't get that nice feeling that I really like.
Right. Yeah. And you miss it.
Yeah.
That's what I find. I'm not really big on fitness per se. I don't have like a fitness routine, so to speak. But my biggest thing is I'm a social dancer, so I like going to dances, and I'm a walker, and I do a variety of things like that. But I do them primarily because I like them, because I enjoy them, and oh, by the way, they also happen to be good exercise.
And that's like such a huge point, and that's like one of the main things I focus with people early on is like finding something you enjoy. And I always say, I'm like, the first program I write you is not going to be the best one from like a science and methodology standpoint. It's going to be the one that you want to do. And a lot of people, like, we're in this age where everybody wants to like optimize, right? Like optimize your morning routine, optimize your diet, optimize your workout routine. But like they're missing the joy component, and that's when people don't stick to it.
Yeah.
It gets overlooked a lot. So
I think you can actually optimize yourself right out of the joy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've tried to do that before, so I know from experience.
You're an expert then.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. Oh, go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I'm not a morning person, and the only slot I could get with my trainer was like 6:45, so I have to get up at 6, which is not my cup of tea, I have to say. But when it's cold, knowing there's no heating in that gym, the motivation that gets me out of the bed every day is knowing how I'm going to feel when I'm finished.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just understanding that you're
absolutely.
gonna get pumped up, you're gonna feel that joy, you're gonna enjoy it when you're at bed, and you're gonna be proud of yourself.
Right. And sometimes it's like, exactly, it's like looking at, it's like the lesser of two evils. Like
Mm,
I hate working out in the afternoon or like running in the afternoon. Ugh, it's terrible. And so that's what gets me out of bed early in the morning to go for a run is I'm like, well, if I don't do it now, I'm gonna have to do it later. And
yeah.
future Alycia is gonna be really mad at present Alycia that she didn't get out of bed.
Mhm. One of my other co-hosts, Joel Elston, is a major gym rat, has been for decades now, to the point now he can deadlift 500 pounds. I
Oh
mean, he's
wow.
the biggest big guy, you know. But one of the things that has come out of the conversations I've had with him, because he was actually one of my first guests 12 and a half years ago, and he's been doing shows with me ever since. And one of the things that shows up a lot in the episodes that we do together is he draws a lot on conversations that he has with people he meets at the various gyms that he goes to.
Hmm.
And so, in other words, there's a social component to it. And
Mm,
I mean, he's never really said this, but I definitely get the feeling that one of the reasons he really enjoys going to the gym is the social side.
Yeah.
So, and I know, like I said, I'm a social dancer. That to me is one of the best parts. I get to interact with other people, and that gives me a huge motivation to do that activity. So, I guess I wanted to ask you, what role do you attribute the social side to?
I mean, I think it can be huge, especially in the beginning. And that's why we saw like CrossFit and like Orange Theory and those types of workouts take off, like, you know, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, because they really, you know, honed in on that community aspect.
mm,
Where things like bodybuilding didn't necessarily, or you know, doing your Jane Fonda tapes in your living room didn't necessarily. So yeah, I think that can be hugely important for some people more than others. I have clients that are actually just, you know, self-proclaimed antisocial introverts, and they're like, no, I don't want to go to the gym because I don't want to be around other people. And
Okay,
I'm like,
yeah,
fair enough, fair enough.
yeah.
But and for them, their workout time is their solitary time of peace and quiet. And so it's just, you know, knowing what's going to work for your personality. Is it going to drain your battery or is it going to charge it to be around other people?
So know yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you know yourself, what do you do with it? That's the question.
You know, you kind of you work with that, and that's a lot of what I do in my program is I help people get to know themselves
Mm,
as athletes, because I there's so much noise out there, especially on social media, of what you should be doing, do this, do that. It doesn't take into account the individual.
mm,
So it's important for people to realize their likes, their dislikes, what their personal barriers are. Like I talk a lot about barriers to entry. So I had a client that I've been working with for months, for example, who she really wanted to go to this gym that was like 30 minutes from her house because
mhm,
she got a free membership through work.
mhm,
And she was quite inconsistent.
mm,
And, you know, we'd have conversations, and I'm like, okay, well, why don't you do some workouts at home? But even that, it was like she'd get home from work and she'd be tired. And then finally, I talked to her like a week ago, and she's like, so there's a gym a mile away from my house. I think I'm going to sign up for it. And I said, yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
mhm.
She hasn't missed a workout
Uh-huh.
since. And so I'm like, so your barrier was that commute, because that was a huge thing that weighed on her mentally, was getting up early, hoping there wasn't traffic. If there's traffic now, she's going to be late to work. That's adding an extra hour to her day just driving to and
Mhm.
from the gym. And she's like, yeah, now it's like a mile from my house. It's no big deal. So it can take a while, but getting people to get to know themselves and what's going to stand in their way, whether it's
mm,
emotionally or logistically.
And what you're talking about actually has science behind it. There are positive psychology studies that have been done that show that proximity directly derives engagement.
Yeah,
So,
that makes
let's I
sense.
mean, the study that I remember hearing about was they were studying what happened if you wanted to play the guitar, I think it was. And if the guitar was over in a case in the closet compared to sitting on a stand next to your chair in the living room, there was a massive difference into whether or
Hmm.
not you could actually pick up the guitar and do something with it,
Yeah, and
just
that's
because of where it's at.
why people say like set your running shoes out, by the door the night before, put your workout clothes, and that can really have like a profound effect on people.
But you also used another word that was interesting. You said people thinking of themselves as being athletes. Anne-Marie, do you think of yourself as an athlete?
No, I wouldn't say I consider myself as an athlete. Maybe an athlete in progress. I know I used to be a lot fitter, and obviously menopause hit me, arthritis hit me, and just everything changed for me. So just picking myself back up, I certainly feel so much stronger. Pain-free practically.
That's good.
Which was amazing, considering I literally felt like I was 80 walking up the stairs. I was in agony. I haven't really thought of that kind of what I would class myself as. I'm just grateful that I did it. And I kind of did that investment into myself and my health. Because I think, Alycia, what you said earlier about health for your future, for your old age, if I feel like 80 when I'm 50, what am I going to be like at 80? And actually all this strength and this muscle building, this balance work, the core strength and everything like that is actually helping me in my older age. And that's also another kind of motivator and action for me in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like to kind of encourage everybody to think of themselves as athletes because
well, I will now.
Yeah, good. I mean, I just, people think of athletes and they think of professional athletes. And I'm like, well, no, those are professional athletes. I think you look at an athlete as anybody that's, trying to better themselves in physical activity. So whether you're trying to get stronger, whether you're trying to get faster. And so that's why I focus a lot of my verbiage and my training and my language around performance for people, because when they kind of stick to that and embrace that identity, that's when that shift happens where all of a sudden it doesn't feel like a chore anymore. And it's something fun and it's something to get better at. When you approach the gym every day being like, I'm going to try to, bench press 5 more pounds than I did last week versus I'm going to go to the gym because I'm hoping to, lose 10 pounds or kilos or whatever stone, probably not 10 stone. That would be a lot, I imagine.
That's a ton, yeah. That's a lot.
But it's not as motivating long term.
Yeah.
It goes back to that instant gratification. So I just encourage people to think back to the time when they did sports, whether that was college, high school, middle school, and what they liked about it. And usually it's like 2 things. It's the community aspect that you touched on. And the second one was getting to try hard at something. And so it's like, okay, well, let's bring that into our adult life. You don't have to run a marathon, but you can still try hard at something and have fun doing it.
Something else that occurred to me as you were describing that, and it also occurred to me a few moments ago when you talked about that optimum performance level that we're in for. It occurred to me that it's very possible to take a love that you have for something like this and turn it into a drudgery.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to guess that that's probably something you encounter a fair amount when you're working with people.
Yeah, and I went through it myself, actually. So after, my time as an athlete and when I was kind of, like I said, puttering around New York and Europe and wherever else, I went through a period where I was quite sedentary and I was drinking quite a bit and I really wasn't taking care of myself at all. And then I went to the other extreme where I found the fitness and I loved it and it was great. And then I took it too far where I was overtraining, undereating, just way more focused on body composition than on getting stronger. And that led into like, a period of depression, and it took a while to come out on the other side and kind of find that middle ground and have a healthy relationship with exercise again. And unfortunately, I think for a lot of, I would say, millennial women and even Gen X women, that is a common story, because it's what we were kind of fed by the media at a
Mm.
point in time when it was either, Jessica Simpson has gotten fat because she is a size 4 instead of a size 0, or it was, bodybuilding.com, which is you should eat egg whites and tilapia and
Mm.
spinach and train your glutes and your triceps. And like, it was all centered on how you look.
Well, I'm also thinking about a friend of mine who she's into yoga. She's an older woman around my age, and she ended up going to a month-long yoga instruction course in North Carolina. And interestingly enough, I mean, she's been doing this kind yoga and other kinds of similar exercise for years now. She didn't really want to become an instructor per se, but that's what the course was for, to become an instructor.
Right.
But she decided to take it because the way she explained it to me, apparently it establishes the baseline. So if you want to take any kind of course anywhere, if you've had that one, they'll let you in. If you don't have that one, it's hard to get into the course. So okay,
Okay.
I'll take the course. She's in the middle of it. She's in the 4th week of the course, and she despises it. She's having an
Really?
absolutely miserable experience
Wow.
because they're not focusing on any of the stuff that she really likes to focus on. They're focusing on like, the spiritual practice of what you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to chant these songs and do all this. And it's like she could care less about all that stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely no interest in it whatsoever. And I don't think this will ever knock her off of doing yoga, but I can certainly see how an experience like that might, take a lot of the fun out of it,
Yeah.
maybe demotivate you for a while,
Yeah, absolutely.
you
I
know?
mean, and that's why when you see this like mass marketing type of training or coaching, and it's not really built down to the individual level, and there's not like that autonomy in it, I think that like that can happen a lot, and you can kind of get you get stuck in that mindset that doesn't really align with like your values and who you are. And you wake up one day and you're living completely out of alignment with your identity and you're not enjoying it.
So that brings us right back to, why are you doing it in the first place? What's motivating you? What gets you excited about it?
What gets me excited about it is, kind of what we said, like getting women. I say women, I do work with some males as well, but primarily women, excited about training again, and like getting them to realize what their bodies are capable of, maybe for the first time in their lives. So my favorite part in a client journey is when they have that mindset shift from like exercise is something that they have to do, it feels like a chore, to hey, I think I want to sign up for this, or I want to try to do this, or can we, add that. And it's like you can see all of a sudden it's flipped over from I'm doing this because I want to be smaller or change my body, to like, this is actually really cool. And I want to, go do the thing, the race, or I want to be able to do a pull up. And then it's like, okay, they're like hooked now, like in a good way. And without me ever having to give them a meal plan or,
Mm.
some boring style of training that they don't like a fixed template. So that's what keeps me coming back, is just that journey, that experience, and just constantly seeing all the BS that is out there, and just like trying my best to cut through that noise for people, because I'm sure I see it too in industries where I'm not an expert, like skincare, for example, right? Like I'm not a dermatologist or an esthetician, and I have like some melasma on my forehead, like discoloration. So yeah, when I see a product that says, hey, this is gonna like help you immediately, I'm like, cool, great, like I'll buy that.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to step back and think like, this might be the same noise in a different industry, that, you know what I mean? So it's hard to find people that you trust. And I just want to be one of those people for women in the space.
And I would imagine for you, like working with different clients, you have a different day every day and you're learning with every client.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, I got my start working with athletes, Division I athletes, who some went on to be professional athletes. They are so much easier to work with from a movement standpoint than the general population.
Sure.
So I was, because it's, they have some genetic talent, some predisposition, everything comes a little bit easier. So when I worked in general population, I learned a ton. I learned so much. And then you learn more about like the emotional piece and the connection piece. And then when you go online, you don't have that face-to-face presence anymore. And so you have to learn to be a really good communicator in that way, and to set expectations. And, like I'm sure, Anna Marie, when you're at the gym, your trainer can read your body language. As soon as you walk in, he or she can probably tell if you're having a tough day or if you're feeling a little tired or off, but I don't have that. So I have to find ways to make that happen. And then, just getting to know different personalities, and it helps you just get better at connecting with people.
Yeah, the
I love
connections.
that.
Yeah. I'm reminded of a guest who was on the program. I don't remember exactly when. I'm going to say within the last 3 to 6 months. He at one point had a severe weight issue. He was over 100 pounds overweight, and I guess the magic for him was when the first number hit 3, and when it hit 3, then he said, "Okay, I got to do something about this."
Yeah.
But he talked about a number of things in his journey, and he ended up losing the weight. But one of the things he pointed out, it kind of stuck with me, and I'm kind of curious to see what your take is on it. He said, there's a lot of misperception out there that says that people really don't know what to do in order to get the weight off. In truth, we know exactly what we have to do. We just don't want to do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's 100% accurate, right? Like it's the thing where it's like simple does not equal easy, right? Yeah. Like it's simple, we need to move a little bit more and consume a little bit less. That's not easy. And it's certainly not easy for some people. Like without getting too much into it, but like GLP-1s, like Ozempic and such, for a lot of people, they help with the food noise, which if you've never experienced that before, you don't know how difficult that can be, to constantly be thinking about food and hunger. For some people, like my fiance, he forgets to eat half the time, and he doesn't know, oh, okay, well, let me just grab a few handfuls of chips and a granola bar. And like, other people, it's like consuming their every thought. So, and whatever thoughts are on the drug or not, like if it's turning that noise off for people, and then it makes those simple things easier to carry out.
I'm also wondering how much belief plays a role in this. And I say that because that's a theme that comes up on a wide range of topics here on the show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can kind of read where I'm going and say, I believe that belief does play a big role, but I'm curious to know what you think. What role does belief play in terms of whether or not people are going to, first of all, succeed with, trying to do something like this? But second of all, maybe it's actually, first of all, even is belief going to play a role in whether they're going to do it at all?
Yeah. I mean, as far as like belief in yourself, or there could be a lot of different ways. Belief in the process, belief in the person leading you, belief in yourself. I mean, self-efficacy plays like a huge role in everything. And that's the belief in your ability to carry out the task. And whether that comes from seeing somebody else do it, like that's common for a lot of people. I think the best example of that was the 4-minute mile. Once it was broken for the first time, like within several months, multiple people broke this barrier that nobody had ever done, just simply because they saw somebody of their athletic ability do it. Mm-hmm. So that belief is common when people see other people accomplish things that they want, and they're of similar ability or skill level or body type or whatever. That absolutely helps. But yeah, I mean, it's huge. You have to have some kind of belief going into it. And that's, you've probably heard, I'm sure, of fixed mindset versus growth mindset. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure you talk about that plenty. So that's another thing that I am always on the eye looking out for. Like if somebody is kind of showing that fixed mindset, and how we can kind of get them to reframe And even when I do like a client intake call, I'm looking for that. I'm seeing like where they are, because they might say, "Oh, I'm a 10 out of 10, ready to start," but everything they've set up until then is very fixed mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to kind of challenge that a little bit.
I'm thinking of a particular individual I know who has a weight issue, and her big thing is, I medically cannot lose the weight. She really believes that.
Right. Yeah. A lot of people believe that, their genetics, and genetics certainly play a role, but people believe that they're genetically disposed to be, obese or overweight. Yeah. They believe that once they hit menopause, there's no hope for them. And not to say that these things don't make it more difficult. They certainly can. But it's, if you are so fixed in that you've just written yourself off, then it's, why would you go to the gym? Why would you work out?
Yeah. Why would you take any action? What's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people grow up just being brutal to themselves about how they look, because they look at media and what's out there and what the perceived perfect body is like, and you end up beating yourself up, certainly in my case. So suddenly coming through and trying to change that, how do you go about changing that with your clients?
I mean, it takes a lot of work. And the first thing I do is, when I talk to them for the first time, is I request that they be as open, honest, and vulnerable with me as they can. And I set that, stage so that, one, they feel comfortable and they feel okay doing that, but also that expectation, so that I know exactly what I'm working with. Now, are they always? No, because it's hard, especially with a stranger you're meeting for the first time. But a lot of what I do is just helping people kind of unlearn some of those beliefs that they've held on to. So I actually have like a module in my new course that is like unlearning like fitness beliefs or things from the past. And so I give a few that I used to believe, and I have a little like mini lesson or challenge exercise where they list out some, and or some things they still believe, and we talk those through and see like where we can reframe that thinking.
It's a significant issue, and I know that because of this person that I know, because I mean, she's absolutely convinced that her situation is tied to a medication that she was on that she's no longer on. And she's heard that medication does something to, I forget what, some part of the body that prevents her from losing weight. So she could have the perfect diet and she'll never lose any weight. That's her belief system.
Yeah. You see it a lot on the internet. If you go to any comment section of any, fitness personality that says that it's as simple, not as easy, but as simple as calories in versus calories out. And you have people who are angry in the comments, and they're like, that is not true. I eat 1,000 calories a day and I do not lose weight. And they're angry because they feel betrayed, almost like on a personal level.
Understandably.
And it's sad, because it's frustrating, it's frustrating as a professional, because you're like, well, we need to get sometimes we just need to get honest with ourselves. Like, are we really moving more? Are we really consuming? Like, we need to visit that. But it's also just like, you feel empathy for these people, because they have in their mind, and I'm not saying in their mind they're making up, but they really feel like they have tried at this thing for so long and it hasn't worked. And so of course they're going to be angry when somebody's like, yeah, it's that simple. And they're like, no, it's not. So you have to really take into account everyone's personal experiences, their past experiences, and just meet them where they are emotionally, I think is the biggest thing.
Yeah, somebody like that, I think probably an app isn't going to help them very much. That they need some direct one-on-one, I would think.
Yeah, well, I think beyond. I think in that case they might need to be working with a dietitian, somebody who you do see a lot of people in the fitness industry that will give out meal plans. And in a lot of states, I don't know how it is overseas, but in the United States, in a lot of states, that is not legal. Like, we are not licensed to do that. I'm not a registered dietitian. I cannot necessarily provide somebody like, you need to be eating, which makes sense, right? Like, so they might need to be working with a registered dietitian more closely. And for them, it's probably a personal trainer or a strength and conditioning coach is not the first person that they should be going to. I would say they need to probably work with somebody in the nutrition space, and ideally somebody that has some kind of counseling or psychology background to go with it, because food is incredibly emotional for people. It's an incredibly emotional and nuanced subject. And it is not as simple as just saying, eat this, eat that, eat whatever. People have different backgrounds, socioeconomic factors, availability, all these different beliefs, trauma that can influence the way that they look at food and diet. And you have to be very careful with how you navigate that with people, in my opinion.
And just to add to it, you mentioned the dietitian thing, because you're right. If you're a dietitian, you do have to get licensing for that. But there's also another word, nutritionist, which is not licensed.
Correct.
And that just kind of adds to the confusion. And then the really interesting thing is when you interview a nutritionist and they tell you what the dietitians aren't telling you, it's like, well, wait a minute, who am I supposed to believe now? After a while, that's that huge pile of information that comes our way, and some of it contradicts the rest of it, and then we don't know what to believe anymore.
Right, exactly. And I mean, you guys have been on social media, I'm sure. Like, it's a dumpster fire. Every year they come out with a different thing that you shouldn't eat, or you should stay away from, or it's going to kill you, or this is a superfood. So it's like, no wonder people are confused.
Yeah, my favorite one's butter. It used to be butter was terrible. Now it's great. And then it's somewhere in between. And like nobody can seem to make up their mind on what butter is.
Right. I remember when like cholesterol had its like moment where everything was like no cholesterol, and it would be like peanut butter. And I'm like, well, cholesterol is like animal byproduct, so I hope there's not cholesterol in my peanut butter. Like, why are these giant words on the jar, peanut butter?
Yeah, you do hear such confusing stuff, because I hear like, eat a banana every day and you'll be amazing, and then it's like, don't eat a banana, you're gonna get really fat and it does this to your body, and it's like, I just don't know, can I have the banana? I just want a banana. And you just don't know what to do.
Yeah,
it's overpowering.
Yeah, when I was in my unhealthy kind of obsession phase of trying to do the bodybuilding and all of that, I remember hearing like eating fruit after dark was like the kiss of death. Like, you may as well have just like put your face under a soft serve machine and just hung out there for 30 minutes if you were gonna eat some strawberries or a banana after the sun went down. It's like, how are people? I mean, that should be like jail time. Like, straight to jail. How are we allowed to be like telling people this stuff?
It's an interesting double take on Arla Guthrie, doing Alice's Restaurant and sitting on the Group W bench and being asked, what are you in for? Well, I'm in for an incorrect dietary approach.
Seriously, though.
Yeah, that the Group W bench becomes really interesting at that point. Yeah. This is a complex space. There's no doubt about it. There's a lot of stuff to navigate here. Let's kind of go to the beginning. Okay. You're starting out. You're facing the idea, I got to do something. Let's be in that person's space. Okay. I think we've covered a lot of the other spaces. Let's cover that one.
All right.
How do we handle that one?
It was an interesting space to find myself in, because I always viewed myself as this successful person, right? Like, I got good grades. I had a 4.0 in high school. I was in all these clubs. I was a 3-sport varsity athlete. I got into one of the top colleges in the country. I walked onto the track team. I didn't realize that there could be anything in my life that wasn't this success, if that makes sense. I just kind of assumed that discipline that I had throughout, my youth, I could just ride that into adulthood and be set. And it wasn't that I lost the discipline. It was just more so that I had never really connected with who I was, if that makes sense. So I ended up just very disconnected from myself. And that sets up like this crash. And so I think when I sat in that space of like, I have to do something, it was like, I have to get back to viewing myself as somebody I was proud of. But that was also problematic, right? Like, I'm sure you can kind of like see where that can go when when you're tying all of your worth and your identity into what you do instead of the person that you are. So yeah, that was a journey that I went on for a few years there, and had to kind of crash and burn in that aspect as well.
And there are a lot of people who are going to identify with that in a lot of different areas, not just in the fitness area.
Yeah. I like I said, I started out because again, I was like, I have to be the best, right? So I went to Division I college athletics, worked at Power 5 universities, which are like the conferences have all realigned themselves, but anyway.
Right.
And I just wanted, I want to win national championship, etc. And I did that. And then I left the space because I was kind of burned out from it. And we could do an entire episode on the world of college athletics, but it's a lot. So when I left that, I went to in-person coaching at a strength and conditioning facility in Florida. And I tried going, into the private sector. And I felt that disconnect from that like elite status because I wasn't working with elite athletes anymore, professional athletes. And I had really tied my identity into being that person. And that was really hard for me. And I burned all the way out to the point where I actually tried to quit coaching altogether in 2021. So I walked away from my job, and I said to my fiance, or he was my boyfriend at the time, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I can't be a coach anymore. Like I'm tired of it. I felt like this worthlessness almost, like that ever since I had left collegiate athletics, I wasn't important anymore. And I wasn't getting that from the in-person I was coaching, even though I loved my clients and I loved the job. It was just, I had to like set it all on fire to like really find myself. And so I talked to like a mentor of mine, and he was like, go be a bartender for a year. And I was like, what? And it was funny because around that time I had like taken a few months off, and then I had gotten like 2 basically dream job offers in strength and conditioning that like 2 years ago I would have been like, this is like the pinnacle. This is exactly what I want. But I turned them both down, and I went and got a job at a restaurant, and I proceeded to serve and bartend for the next 3 years.
Wow.
At some point during that, like probably 6 months in, I started coaching again online. Well, I never really let my online coaching clients go. I had a few of them the whole time, but I started doing that again. And then I started to kind of find myself outside of being a coach. When you're going to work every day and you're pouring drinks and you're like just chatting with people, and you're having coworkers that are just like, they're just like there to have a good time in life. Like, it made me realize like it doesn't have to be so serious. And so that was like pretty interesting advice, but really like eye-opening advice for me was like, remove yourself from it, and then you'll figure out like what you want. But I had to let go of that like identity of excellence.
Yeah, well, it also sounds like you had to let go of what I'll call a perfection ideal.
Yeah. And being like misaligned in that it was all, it's all about a logo or a title. And that doesn't matter. Like, and I see that now. But it took me like walking away from it to really make peace with the fact that like that was not the most interesting thing about me.
So from a different perspective, and something that I've always wondered, so as a coach, if you've worked with a client who's done quite well and they've left and they've put weight on, they've let their health go, how would you welcome them back? Because from a client's point of view, I would imagine that's quite scary to go back. They'd feel a bit of maybe a bit of judgment or something. So how would you promote that to your clients to come back to you?
So I think people, we're our own worst critics, right? Like we judge ourselves way harder than anybody else does. And I learn that, weekly when I have clients express things to me that I'm like, they'll be like, "Are you mad? I did this. Are you mad?" And I'm like, "No." Like, oh, they're like, "I didn't do my run yesterday. I went for a hike instead. Are you mad?" No. Why would I be mad about that? But it's like we tell ourselves these stories in our head that, these people have expectations. So when I do have a client that has gone through that and comes back, I just always try to approach it from like a place of excitement, and because that's genuine. Like I'm in this industry to serve people first and foremost. And so like I had a client I reached out to today who was a former client, and she had basically said like, "I actually was thinking about you, but I would be starting from like ground zero. I really haven't been doing anything." And I just went at it from an approach of like, not a problem at all. Like I barely even acknowledged that. I was just like, "I would love to work with you again. Like I'm offering like a special currently. Let me know what your schedule looks like, and we can see if now would be like a good time to start because it's summer and people's schedules are a little more chaotic." But I think it's just approaching them with excitement and just making it like feel like not a big deal, because they're the ones that are making it a big deal. So sometimes even if you're keep talking on it, they're like, "Okay, she actually really thinks it's a problem," but we don't.
Like you show me somebody whose life is just a full up straight line. It's ups and downs, isn't it? And it's just embracing that.
Absolutely. And people go through tragedies, they go through tough times, they go through seasons that are more difficult all the time. And so it's like, but when you are a coach that puts the person first for the transformation or whatever it is that you're trying to get them to, and you see them as a person, then it's a lot easier to build that trust and to have them feel comfortable with telling you these things and being open and honest.
And it's a challenge when you're trying to get that excitement level going, because that's what you were saying. You want to build that excitement level to help draw them back with that. But if they're low enough on that emotional spectrum, that's a reach.
Yeah.
That's not always like within reach.
Yeah. So I think it's not expecting them to necessarily be excited, but it's just expressing that you're excited, to be having them in your space. And then for them, it's like, well, talk to me. Like, tell me what's been going on, and just giving them that platform to be vulnerable and express why this is happening, like what's been going on in their life, like what have I missed, what do we need to work through. And that's really important information going forward too, because if I were to just jump in and be like, "Okay, perfect, we're going to start with running and let's make sure we're hitting this protein and like well, I'm not addressing the reason why they may have like put on this weight, this emotional component, which is usually there.
I would think too that a big piece of it is how big of a step are you encouraging them to take? And the reason I say that is in most areas where someone's trying to make a change, they'll tend to make the best ground. There are exceptions, of course, but they'll tend to make the best ground when they're trying to make incremental changes.
Yeah.
If they try to make big changes, they might get there, but it also might defeat them and stop them.
Yeah, exactly. I try to get people to focus on like process goals versus just outcome goals. So, you can have your big goal of, losing 10 pounds or running a 5K, but, to keep us going, we need to have little mini wins within there too, right? So we've got to, if it's weight loss, then it might be, okay, well, I'm going to focus on getting 3,000 steps a day if they had been previously incredibly sedentary. So, and meeting them where they're at so that you can have those like small increments instead of just like blanket prescriptions of 10,000 steps a day. Sounds great. They've only been walking for 2,000. That's going to feel really challenging. So just trying to take them up a little tiny step from where they were.
I imagine that if there were listeners, women listening who were intrigued by what you're doing, they probably might want to know how to reach you. We should probably tell them that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am most active on Instagram. My handle is at coach.AlyciaCA, and Alycia is ALYCIA. My website is AlyciaCarrillofitness.com. So you can find me there. And yeah, like I said, I launched my new program today, actually, formally. And I am running a special for the week where if you do apply this week, you will get 1 month free, as well as a free FaceTime one-on-one workout session with me.
There you go.
If you're local, we can do in person, but
yeah. But you have to be in St. Petersburg for that one. So
yes.
Yeah. Understandable. I also like to turn to Anne Marie at this point in the show, because not only is she a co-host, she's actually a listener who became a co-host. And as a result, I think of her as somebody who represents the listener. And I know that you have been thinking about what we've been talking about from the listener perspective, as well as from your own perspective throughout. What do you tie this conversation together with from that perspective, Anne Marie?
From this conversation, I just feel like I've been wrapped in some bubble wrap, and I feel very like cushioned. And I just love the whole, it's not just about doing the weights. It's not just about losing the weight. It's about the mindset. It's about the health background. It's about, it's just how equally that is important as exercise, and creating that safe space to do so. So I've loved that part of the conversation, but I think the nugget for me was get to know yourself. So understand who you are and explore that. And I think that's really important to move yourself forward, because like you say, we're very hard on ourselves. You get to know yourself, what your values are, what you believe in, what you believe you can do. I just thought that was a beautiful nugget of knowledge.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, that's a theme that plays out in almost every topic we ever have here, believing in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, you're not going to get very far. So you're right. That's a key part. If you don't have that part, you don't have anything to build on.
Yeah, exactly. And I had to build up my belief in myself along the way as well. So I always, that's why I like to share my story with people, is because it wasn't perfect. It certainly wasn't a straight line. I took a lot of side steps, backward steps, took a swan dive off the deep end a time or two, but we ended up right where we needed to be.
Okay. Yeah. And that's usually the way it works when you keep your focus. That's no doubt. One other thing I like to do at the end of every show is, we were talking earlier about all the noise that's out there on the internet, and there's plenty of it. But there's also people who are contributing and trying to help. And that's what you're doing. You're contributing and you're trying to help. You're giving back in a sense. There's so much that is out there, and we do so much giving back in various ways. Things that you do podcasts. I'm sure you were mentioning the Instagram. You do various social media. You're putting stuff out there all the time, and in the process, you're actually helping people that you don't even know about. You never met them. You never will meet them. They're doing something with it. They got maybe one piece of it, and they took it, put it to use, and it became valuable, and you never find out about it. And that's what I noticed, because that's the era that we live in. We live in this 21st century technological era, which is full of wonders, but it's also got this large chunk that nobody gets credit for. So I try to shift that up by saying, Alycia, on behalf of those people you've never met, never seen, never will meet, never will see, who you've been helping in ways you didn't even know about, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in this world.
Thank you. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think we need to recognize that, because there are so many people now who are trying to help, trying to give, trying to just put out there, here's what has worked for me, maybe it'll work for you.
Yeah, I feel like they're screaming into the ether and nobody's listening.
Yeah.
It's
It's not just the void.
The void.
So Alycia, thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And, best of luck with what you're doing. Keep it doing.
Thank you. I had a great time.
Yeah, we had a good time too. And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.